call this August 16th meeting of the Cookeville City Council to order, please. Can we have a roll call?
Councilman Anderson.
Here.
Councilman Shelton. Mayor Salee.
Present.
Vice Mayor Davis.
Present.
Councilman Williams.
Present.
4 present, 1 absent.
If we could all rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Bow your heads. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. First item on the agenda tonight is to consider approval of agenda as presented. Looks like we have one correction, add item 10. Are there any other corrections or additions?
Need to withdraw item 3.
Withdraw item 3. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you. Brings us to the old business section of our meeting. Item 2, consider approval of minutes of council meeting held August 2nd, 2007. I'll have a chance to review those, I suppose. Do we have a motion and a second?
Move approval as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you. Now on to the new business. Item 4, consider resolution 070814 in support of a Tennessee Technological University distributed generation project. Sponsor Mr. Tony Peak.
Mayor and Council, we were approached around the 1st of June by Dr. Radman at Tennessee Tech and asking our support of a distributed generation project that they're wanting to demonstrate. And they're asking our support with others, TVA, Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and lots of other folks are involved. And they're wanting to apply for a grant with the Department of Energy. It's a $2 million matching grant. And of course, being a local power distributor, they want our involvement. Basically, what they're going to go over on Tech campus, probably around Pine Avenue, and build this distributed generation facility. For those of you who don't know what a distributed generation facility is, it's basically lots of small energy sources combined to produce electricity. And hopefully they'll want to prove the economics and prove the quality of what it can do for the power system. They'll want to inject power onto our system near the tail end of our line to improve voltage, shave peaks, and those kind of things. And again, quite a few folks involved. Tennessee Tech, obviously, Tennessee Valley Authority, CED if you approve this. Z-Tech Corporation is a fuel cell group. They're going to do some things for Tennessee Tech. Oak Ridge National Laboratory and the Electric Power Research Institute. To give you an idea of what they're going to have at this facility, they're going to have some gas micro turbines. They're going to have a 2,000 square foot solar panel array. They're going to use fuel cells and batteries, hopefully, to demonstrate this project, and would like to join them in that effort and recommend your approval. We'll have about, they want us to support them at the tune of about $50,000 a year for a three-year project, but that will all be in kind. We'll provide transformation and those kind of things for them.
Well, if it's not out of order, I'd like to make a motion that we support this project and let Mr. Peak and the Cookeville Electric Department support Tennessee Tech and work with them. Hopefully, get this grant and do some forward-thinking things on power generation.
Second motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council?
Just a quick question. When you said gas, mini turbine units, is that like gasoline or is that propane type?
I
gas, like our gas
I
pump?
have my electrical engineer here with me who has worked quite a bit on this project. Ed Greenwell, if you would.
Okay.
I think this is, I'm very excited about this project. I think it's going to be great for Cookeville and Tennessee Tech. This is something that I know the Department of Energy had a program several years ago called the Million Roofs Program that was primarily photovoltaics, but it had been told, I had been told previously that TVA makes plenty of power, but they can't pump it down a little small line. And I know Tennessee Tech is already doing research on different distribution lines. But if you can do distributed generation, it reduces, my understanding, reduces having to put in more transmission lines, like what we're seeing up on Buck Mountain, more substations, and nobody wants that kind of thing in their neighborhood. So, to me, the nation as a whole is on the brink of a new era in energy and energy distribution. And if Cookeville and Tennessee Tech can partner and be a small part of that, I think it'll be a huge success for this community.
I think there'll be quite a bit of national attention drawn to this project once it gets up and running as well.
Mr. Peak, when they do so when they generate this electricity, will the Tennessee Tech then benefit from, will they use the electricity or?
No, it's going to be basically outside the campus feed. They're just looking to demonstrate this to the Department of Energy for its potential usefulness and whether it's economically feasible to do for power systems all over the world.
Well, I definitely think it's a great idea.
I know coming back from Wyoming this summer, driving out of Denver, Colorado, there was a Walmart that the whole side of Walmart was solar panels, PVs, and they had their own wind turbine out there. And I think if you've got a company that's pretty economically savvy like Walmart doing things like that, I think that you're probably going to see a trend in that way. And we're going to need engineers and folks like our staff at Cookeville Electric that.
Hopefully that's where a lot of our in-kind money will come from, is Ed's contribution.
That's right. We hope so. Get something out of him. Any further comments by the council? Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
Thank you.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Keep us posted on that. Item 5, hold a public hearing and consider on first reading ordinance 070824, amending the budgets of the various funds departments of the city of Cookeville, Tennessee for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2007. Sponsor, Mr. Mike Davidson.
Mayor and council members, this ordinance will amend some of the budgets for various funds within the city. And I'll just kind of run through those and try to summarize those and then answer any questions you might have about this. Starting with the general fund, we have additional revenue of $1,387,677, additional revenue that we did not budget. Roughly $382,000 of that is grant revenue that we received throughout the year, which we incurred some additional expenses because of those grants that we received. Some of the additional revenue we received, local sales tax was additional $325,000. Again, we had the fire department received a Homeland Security grant, which was roughly $242,000. Our business tax was $166,000 more than what we budgeted. Just various revenue items there, but again, a total of $1,387,000 in additional revenue. We also incurred in the general fund additional expenditures of $825,165. Again, $382,000 of that was reimbursed by grants throughout the year. We have some additional line items where we had more appropriations than what was needed, and that's roughly $63,000. So we've decreased those line items to help offset some of these additional expenditures and other line items. But we had a total of $825,165 in additional expenditures, but we're adding to the general fund balance at the end of June 3rd, 2007, $562,000 is what we're adding to the fund balance for the general fund. Moving along, we have a few other funds. Our drug fund, we had additional revenue there for $20,000. That was basically confiscated properties. We had additional expenditures in the drug fund of $11,700, and we're adding to the drug fund balance $8,300. We Within the Animal Control Fund, we had additional revenue of $2,500 and additional expenditures there of $2,625. So we're going to decrease the fund balance. The Animal Control Fund, $125 is what we're showing in the budget. In the Economic Development Fund, back in, I think it was fiscal year '06, we set $100,000 aside for the Rails with Trails project. We set that in the Economic Development Fund, and we've decided this year to account for all the expenditures in the Rails with Trails out of the Quality of Life Fund. So what I've done is transfer that $100,000 that we set in the Economic Development Fund over to the Quality of Life Fund, and this will amend that budget to make that transfer to the Quality of Life Fund. So you'll see that decrease in the Economic Development Fund budget of $100,000. And then on the Quality of Life Fund, we have a increased revenue of $132,000 there. $100,000 of that is the transfer I just mentioned, which came from the Economic Development Fund. We had $32,000 there in intergovernmental revenue, which is the other agencies, Putnam County and Monterey, which is helping with the Rails with Trails project, $32,000 there. We had additional expenditures in the Quality of Life Fund of $64,000. Again, that's the Rails with Trails project. But we're adding to the fund balance in the Quality of Life Fund $68,000, and that's primarily that $100,000 we transferred from the Economic Development Fund. And the last fund I have for you to consider is the amendment is for the hospital. They had operating expenditures, an increase in operating expenditures of $4,055,000, but in their capital expenditures and their renovations, they had a decrease in capital of $1,893,000, and then on the renovations, $9,534,000 that they hadn't spent this past fiscal year. So they're actually adding to their fund balance reserves of $7,372,000. And that's all the amendments that I have for you to consider tonight.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
And I have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council? When we, on the Quality of Life Fund, was that the...
Did we vote on that?
Not yet.
No, we're still discussing.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to the next thing,
I hit the button accidentally.
When, the Quality of Life, is that the 1 cent?
Yes.
Yes.
And it generates, how much does the penny, is it like 30?
62,000.
62,000.
62,000. Any other comments? Any comments from the audience?
Looks pretty good to me.
Looks pretty good. Seeing no other comments, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Item 6, consider on first reading ordinance 070823, amending Title 18, Chapter 2 of the Cookeville Municipal Code pertaining to sewer use ordinance. Sponsor, Mr. Ronnie Kelly.
Mayor and council, a MPDS permit at our wastewater plant was reissued in 2006, and in that permit there were some requirements to look at our pass-through limits that we have in our ordinance because of the way you recalculate those. The previous limitations were based on a 3-day low, 20-year low flow of the receiving stream, and the new calculations are based on a 7-day, 10-year low flow of the receiving stream. And the values for cyanide and cadmium are lowered based on the new flow calculations, while all the parameters either raised or stayed the same. Using these pass-through limits as the maximum effluent value that we can discharge to the stream, you can then determine what the influent loading to the plant can be. And you determine what your influent loading should be based on protecting your biosolids of the plant, protecting the bugs that do all the work in the plant. You protect all those, so then you can back that out, figure out what you have to get coming in to protect all those things and protect the receiving stream, and then you figure out what industry then can take and discharge to you. Then we regulate what industrial clients can discharge to us. And the bottom line of all this is everything's went up except those two items. All the local limits increased except for trans-dichloroethylene and naphthalene. And one of those is a degreaser, and the other is a natural component of petroleum and coal, and is used in the leather tanning industry. We don't see that being an issue, So it's not an issue to our industrial clients, and we'd recommend approval.
Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Did you get all that?
Very, very
I'm
impressive.
very grateful that you understand it all.
Did we have a second?
Yeah.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Now,
But the main reason for the concentration difference is because you're just changing the rate to flow, or the, according to your letter.
Well,
correct? The 3-day, 20-year versus 7-day, 10-year.
That's the way you have to calculate it now, but we also had there's some of the numbers, even with the change of flows, there's some numbers that went up, that you had a higher limit, but it's based on, because we had a lot of data over the last few years about what the plant's taking out, and the plant's taking out higher than what we had calculated in prior permits. So you were able to use that removal rate also in that calculation.
I'm missing the comedy in all the engineering.
I've just-
feat.
Lots of chemistry and math.
do we have any other comments by the council? Questions, comments from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
People just don't appreciate their sewers.
No.
They really don't.
Until they stop up.
Yeah, right. I mean, they just don't appreciate the work that goes into it.
Item 7, consider approval of sewer line cost sharing agreement. Sponsor, Mr. Ronnie Kelly.
Mayor and council, we've had a request for another cost share agreement. Mr. Ed Butler's developing a tract of property. This is Davis Road, the electric department's service center, Davis Road. This is the tract in question. Our existing sewer facilities are located here. There is a line that stops about here. It is too shallow for gravity sewer to flow into that system. He has approached us about doing a cost share on this segment of the line. That cost sharing, he's requested 48%. The estimated total of the project was $6,725.30. The city's share of that cost, if we so choose to agree to it, would be $3,227.66. That works out to $3,227 per parcel. He has, since that time, or I guess in the process, he's cut a track off here. So you could say there's 2 tracks going to be served, or you could look at it at 1 track being served, and make that if you look at it as 2 tracks, it's $1,600 a parcel. We've looked at it, and it seems a reasonable request, and we'll bring it to you for your consideration.
We have a motion and a second to approve.
Move approval.
Second.
Got our motion and our second. Any discussion by the council?
Ronnie and I have talked about this a little bit. I've got a few concerns about it. One, not necessarily on this property per se, but on, do you have any idea how many individual pump systems that we have in the city of Cookeville? Or could you guess?
Uh, 100, maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's a tough guess, but probably in the 100, 200 range, maybe.
Yeah.
That may be a little high.
Yeah, but in the 2 other times since I've been a councilman, well, I know of 2 times, one since I've been a councilman, one before. The difference for me is that in those 2 other cases, it seemed to me like we were using this cost share agreement to help serve tracts of property which didn't currently have sewer. And the fact is I don't think anyone's distributing that or arguing that a gravity versus a pump station is better, because I think we all agree that that would be better. But I don't know, for me, if the other 100 to 200 people in the city of Cookeville came in the city doors tomorrow and asked us to share half the cost in order to get them off their pump, would we be responsible to share in that cost in the same manner? by doing this.
Well, I
Because
think
I would agree that this is a better scenario, but I don't know if we're setting ourselves up for doing something here, albeit I'm in construction. If I were going to develop this piece of property, I would prefer to have it in that for the seat in the gravity for the sheer maintenance purposes of not having to have a pump. So I guess the concern is, in this case, for me, I felt like that a cost-sharing agreement was for properties that were unserved by current sewer utilities, and that if this is a better solution for Mr. Butler or any developer or property owner, that they should incur the cost. Now, in this case, if they want to dedicate that utility service to us later, maybe we help them get easements necessary to do it. But I don't know about the city incurring additional cost at citizens' rate in order to provide services which in some mind's eye may be redundant.
Yeah, and we've talked about it, and this sewer here is too shallow for the property, and the way we have interpreted our ordinances is that sewer's available if you can gravity and get on by gravity. Otherwise, every piece of property in town that doesn't have sewer, we could probably make it available within 6 months by running a 2-inch force main down the road and say, sewer's available, put a pump in and you can hook up.
Right.
So, I mean, the way we looked at it is this property did not have gravity sewer available to it, so therefore did not have access to the sewer system.
Right. Then why did we extend 300 feet of sewer line up Davis Road when we originally put that in?
I think the electric department did that when they built their facility, if I'm not mistaken.
So that'd
I'd
be
have to
Tony
look that
Peake's
up.
fault, I guess. No, I'm just
It'd be
kidding.
your predecessor, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. It just seems to me like either one way is, I would prefer it all to be gravity in all of the city. We can't afford to do that, but in this case, we are providing services. So for me, I'm a little concerned about that, and maybe our attorney can speak to this agreement and whether the acceptance of this agreement would then in turn require us to do that for 100 to 200 people.
Well, I think, and I hate to interrupt, but I think the ordinance allows us to look on them on a case-by-case basis and bring them to you. And if we feel like it's not a reasonable request, we don't have to bring it to you. Now, that doesn't mean the citizens can come and request it anyway, but we wouldn't bring it to consideration to the council as a department request.
That was my understanding of it when we I think passed that previously, was that it had to be looked at individually. And you know, I think if we're going to ultimately, once he's from the property line, won't we be responsible for this sewer after he's, I mean...
He would bring it up to this corner of his property, and that's the way the ordinance talks about, is up to the track. And then from there up, he's going to cut a track off here. He's going to be responsible to run that up there and have a private easement along there. And then if he ends up cutting this off, he can come here and extend it on at his expense and provide sewer to those tracks and turn it over to the city if he puts it into the city specs.
Is there potential for other lots or other parcels to tie on to that at future times, or not really where it's located?
Pretty much everybody else, this track right here has technically access out in this area, and it's already got some access here, but everybody else has pretty much got access to the current sewer system.
So if, for instance, this 2-lot subdivision does occur and that does have gravity in that front lot, we would not own an easement from
He's going
the major property line to the new proposed subdivided tract?
What he's proposing to do is cut this track off. He's going to have a private easement down this line to the public sewer and still have his other property there. He can, I mean...
Which can be served by that, what he's...
Yes, and I mean, if he wants to, he can extend this on up and dedicate it to us, but we're just not, we wouldn't recommend sharing in that cost. We would recommend sharing up to the main track, and anything he does within that track would be at his cost.
Well, Mr. Butler and I have talked about this today. I just called him and said, you know, I'm a little concerned about it. He and I discussed it. I think anytime, you know, we can help somebody do something that's good, it's great. I just don't want to set a new precedence by which we're making commitments to citizens that we don't intend to fulfill for every citizen, you know, and so that would be the only thing that concerns. But I think if the roles were reversed and Mr. Butler was sitting here and I was sitting over there, I'd be wanting to put it in gravity as well.
Mhm.
I just don't know if I agree with the sharing in that cost.
And just the way I've looked at it was, we're trying to get as much as we can on gravity, because there's been some pump stations around that we've had to take out that cost a lot of money to do those. And so our philosophy has sort of been looking, let's try to get these things on gravity if we can, because we don't want to come back later and spend a lot of extra dollars and 5
Funny,
years.
a lot of the people now that are on pumps don't have any choice.
Yeah, a lot of them don't.
I mean, they don't. I mean, I think of a former councilman's house in Mount
Yes.
Vernon that's like, there's no way.
Yeah, it's a,
He has to pump it. you know.
yeah, that's his only option was to
Yeah.
get on.
Yeah.
And he bore all that expense and did that himself.
Mhm.
And
But I think for clarification of the record, if someone owns a pump on their home currently now,
yes,
from the main line that's out in front of their house into the house and including the pump, that maintenance and control of that pump is their responsibility. Is that correct?
it's out to the city right of way. If they install like the previous reference Mr. Shipley was talking to, he ran from put his own pump in, hit the right of way, we inspected it up to our pipe. We wanted to maintain control of that on the city right of way. And if we needed, somebody else wanted to get into that and we had it sized correctly, then they could tie their pump into it until we were able to get gravity at that point at some point. So we'd take control of that line once it hits the right of way.
And it's looked at case by case.
Case by case.
And that's the way the ordinance is written.
Yes.
And I think that's the precedent that we're setting, is that we will work with people and give them the chance to present their case and look at it and on an individual basis, and if it's cost effective and beneficial, then we'll do it.
Yeah, and you know, I may not think there's a good case, and so you may have some people come in one day that wants to argue and recommend doing it, that I wasn't being fair about it, you know, or I couldn't come in and recommend it to you.
Any further comments, questions, comments from the audience? Seeing none, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Councilman Anderson,
Aye.
Mayor Salih,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilman Williams.
No.
We have 3 yes, 1 no.
Motion carried.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you.
Item 8, consider declaring as surplus property a portion of the western right-of-way of South Washington Avenue from Reagan Street South to South Low Avenue, located adjacent to 107 and 121 South Washington Avenue. Sponsor, Mr. James Mills.
Mayor and council members, Mr. J.D. Parks and Mr. Tom Lee, who own property identified as Parcel 3 on Tax Map 53F Group G, and Dr. Stephen and Mary Johns, owners of property identified as Parcel 2 on Tax Map 53F Group G, have submitted request that a portion of the right-of-way of South Washington Avenue contiguous to the east of their properties be declared as surplus and made available for purchase. The portion of right-of-way proposed for surplus declaration consists of approximately 7,900 square feet. The subject portion of South Washington Avenue right-of-way is located south of Reagan Street and is currently used as public parking. Mr. Parks and Mr. Lee are the owners of the former Maddox Hardware property, which includes the associated private parking area located to the west of the property proposed for surplus declaration, which is this tract right here. The Johns are the owners of the former bus depot property, also located to the west of the right-of-way. Both groups of property owners have indicated that if they can acquire the property proposed for surplus, it would be used as private parking. Should the request be approved, the portion of the right-of-way proposed for surplus declaration would be divided between the two petitioners and would become portions of parcels 2 and 3. A survey indicates that approximately 1,375 square feet would be purchased by Parks and Lee and added to parcel 3, and approximately 6,525 square feet would be purchased by the Johns and added to parcel 2. The property has not been appraised. However, it's recommended that the value be placed at $1.43 per square foot, which is the same value established by the council in December for surplus South Low Avenue right-of-way that was purchased by Mark Pirtle. The Planning Commission has approved the surplus property declaration and sale at an amount established by the City Council, subject to the retention of a utility easement 10 feet in width along both sides of any existing utilities, to the inclusion in the deed that the city retains the right to repurchase at any point in the future any portion of the right-of-way determined necessary by the city for the widening of South Washington Avenue or South Low Avenues at the same price per square foot for which the property is sold, and subject to the submittal of subdivision plats combining the portions of right-of-way with parcels 2 and 3. And the Planning Department concurs with the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion by the council?
This is similar to what we did some time ago with that, the Aldi property.
Yes, and that's where we get the value
Same
from.
square footage cost. That's-
Yes,
Yeah.
it's the same type of situation.
Any comments from the audience? Any further comments from the council? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Mills. Item 9, consider awarding the following bids. 9A, one mid-size sports utility vehicle, fire department sponsor, Chief John Kendrick.
Mayor and council, we opened bids recently and received 4 bids for a mid-size SUV, with Heritage Ford being the lowest bid at $20,288, and would ask for your approval for that.
We have a motion and a second.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion by the council? Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was too.
Item 9B, 2 motorcycle leases, 4 pickup trucks, and 4 police cars. Police Department sponsor, Chief Bob Terry.
Mayor and council, we recently advertised for bids for a lease for 2 police motorcycles. The only bid we received from Boswell's Harley Davidson Cookeville. We'd recommend your approval.
Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second.
Second.
Any
Second.
discussion by the council? I'd just like to say I'm very interested in seeing how the program of motorcycles go for our police department. I think it's going to be something that, one, I hope it saves energy and gasoline and makes cars last longer and that sort of thing. But I think other than that, it's going to be a tremendous public relations tool. And one of the first things that came to my attention when we started talking about this was those 2 times of the day when the traffic gets locked down in Cookeville, in the morning and afternoon, and if we need somebody to get through that, a motorcycle is certainly going to be advantageous to us. So hopefully this will work out to be a good program, as long as our officers can be safe on the...
They're going to be able to deliver these by Fall Fest?
I think they said turnaround time was like 5 weeks,
Okay.
5 or 6 weeks, I'm not sure.
It's a good use for it, you know, when we have all the kids coming out with the fire department stuff. Be a good then if we could, but I doubt it. That's what, 3.5 weeks from now.
Any further comments by the council? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
The next item we have, Mayor and council, is we recently advertised for bids for 4 four-wheel drive pickup trucks. The low local bid meeting specifications was Heritage Ford. There was $67 per unit difference between them and in the low bid, a total of $268. We recommend your approval.
Do we have a motion and a second?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. How many trucks or
4.
cars? 4. Down at the on the bottom of this bid sheet, it's got lowest Carlin Motors lowest bid meeting specifications in an amount, then Heritage Ford lowest local bid meeting specifications.
There was a out-of-town bid that was lower by $67 per unit, and that was Smith County Motors. On those 4 units, Smith County Motors was a total of $268 cheaper.
But we're going to the local bid.
That was a local bid, Heritage Ford. All right, any further discussion by the council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
And lastly, Mayor and Council, we recently advertised for bids for 4 police cars. Carlin Motor Company was a low bidder meeting specifications, and we'd recommend your approval.
Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council? Comments by the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Mayor, if you will, just like to get a report on Officer Shannon Smith, how he's doing. I know he was in an accident about a week ago.
He's scheduled to go back to the doctor, I think, in about another 7 or 8 days. He was back at the police substation just a few days after he was released from Erlanger a couple of days later. I don't believe at this time they anticipate any long-standing injury. We may have to give him some remedial training. He's supposed to be one of the motorcycle officers, so there you go.
Well, we're really glad, when we get those phone calls, I tell you, as a councilman or woman, our heart stops, you know, and we're glad to know that he's okay. It was a little unnerving there for a while.
Well, everybody appreciates it. It doesn't go unnoticed that the amount of concern that y'all have. We do appreciate it.
Thank you. Item 9C, tractor with side mower, dump truck body, 2 leaf vacuum machines, and 1 cargo van. Public Works Department sponsor, Mr. Greg Brown.
Mayor and Council, we recently advertised and received bids for all these items. The first one is a tractor with side mower. The low bid meeting specs was tri-green. We would recommend approval for the bid with the shuttle clutch at $38,935.
Motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council? Seeing no comments, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
4 yes votes, motion carries.
The next item is a dump truck with a dump body. The local bidder meeting specs is Landmark International. They were about 2.3% higher than the low bid at $60,528.49, and I would recommend Landmark to receive the bid.
Do we have a motion and a second?
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council? This is a single axle dump truck?
Yes, and also Landmark can deliver in 2 to 3 weeks, where the other one, I think, is 6 to 8 weeks.
What, do you have something, I mean, is there going to be a specific use for this truck that you've got in mind, that you're replacing something, or?
Well, we're adding the leaf crew, so one of the existing dump trucks will rotate down to one of the new leaf crews we're having and use this as a regular dump truck.
Well, this will go straight to 7th Street.
Yes, probably. Yeah.
What kind of price difference would, I mean, just guesstimating, if we'd been looking at something larger than a single axle? I mean, if we'd have just gone ahead and gotten, you know, a larger dump truck, is it really?
Probably 15 to 20,000.
Really? Wow. Okay. We'll just be happy with what we got.
Yeah.
Any other comments by the council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Next item is 2 leaf vacuum machines. The low bidder meeting spec was the ODB company. The total for the 2 vacuums was $32,482, and recommend your approval.
We have a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion by the council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
With all those opposed, like sign.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
The last item is a 1-ton cargo van with a diesel engine for the traffic signal division. Tom Bannon Chevrolet was a low bidder, meeting specs at $26,804.83, and recommend your approval.
We have a motion and a second.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council? I know Councilman Shelton and I had discussed with you about the possibility of one of the diesel, this is a diesel,
Yes.
and one of the, what is it, the Dodge Sprinter that's the taller, and I did a little research myself. They're quite a bit more expensive, so hopefully this will work for them just fine. But any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Item 10, consider authorizing the city manager to purchase a house located at 636 Fairground Street, sponsor Mr. Jim Shipley.
Mayor and council, this is part of the Fairground Street widening project. This house is on the corner of Walnut and Fairground Street at the intersection with Veterans Drive. We're taking a fairly significant portion of the front yard, and the lady that lives there just said, why don't you just buy my house? It was appraised at somewhere in the $90,000 range, and she said she'd take that for the house. And our plan is if you approve it, is to purchase the house, and then when the project is finished, we can sell the house or keep the property or whatever. But I think we can sell the house and basically recapture most of our money. It's sort of the same type deal that we did on Southgate Drive on the same project. And I would recommend your approval.
Do we have a motion and a second?
Move approval.
Motion and a second. Any discussion by the council? Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Shipley. That brings us to the hearing of citizens and/or delegations, and we encourage the public to come and share their ideas and comments about the business of the city of Cookeville and concerns that are happening in the community. Short of our department heads, we had a pretty open room tonight. We would appreciate some warm bodies up here. Any
We did have
comments?
the press.
We do have the press.
The
We're
press.
glad that they're here. Any comments from the council? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.